you'd be pretty damn unlucky to damage this frame unless you were hit by a car. Hey guys, Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. Today I wanted to talk about gravel bikes. Are gravel bikes the future of cycling? Okay, so I can hear you asking, what is a gravel bike? Great question. Thanks for asking, the person behind the camera. We used to have road bikes and mountain bikes. What a gravel bike is it's blurred the two together. So now we have the road bike characteristics, such as like the drop down handlebars, that kind of thing. It feels like a racing bike, but we've got thicker, stronger tires so that we can go off-road onto perhaps the gravel parts or even the mountain bike tracks, and it's a little bit more robust. Let's take a more in-depth look. So the first thing that I spoke about there was having the drop down handlebars. This isn't on every single gravel bike. It just happens to be on this example and more common on the higher end bikes as well. So drop down handlebars and the same shifter as what we would find on a racing road bike. The tire, however, might be a lot thicker than a racing road bike. This particular example has sort of your knobs along the side. So as you're riding along and leaning into a corner, you've got a bit of grip going around the corner. If we're coming a little bit further down, we can see that we've got the hydraulic disc brakes a lot of the time. It might even be a cable actuated disc brake as well. Nonetheless, more powerful than what you typically find on a road bike. Often quite similar to what you find on a mountain bike, again, blurring the two between. Through axles, so you've got a nice powerful and strong axle that goes through the wheel so that when you're using that brake, you're not sort of losing any of that efficiency through the skinny little quick release. You've got a nice thick through axle. This one also looks like it has a tubeless valve. Tubeless is really common on gravel bikes. When you're out there in the middle of nowhere and you were to get a puncture, you're in trouble. You're just gonna have a bad time, I suppose. So having the tubeless will help to prevent the chance of that happening. These handlebars here actually are a little bit different to what you'd often find on a racing road bike. For example, as you come down the drop, this part here, it might be flared outwards a little bit. So instead of your hands coming straight down, they might come out a little bit wider, which helps get your elbow out so you can kind of control the bike a little bit better. This particular example has a bit of a rise as well. That'll make it a little bit more compliant as you're going over the bumps or perhaps potholes throughout the road. So a more comfortable front end as a whole. While I'm over here as well, I might quickly just point out that this particular Specialized Diverge happens to have a little bit of suspension built into the steerer tube. That's gonna make it even more comfortable again. Depending on your preferences of what you actually want to do with this bike, you might find that there's actually 3 different main types of frame that you can get. We can look at this one here, which is an aluminium frame. We can tell because it's got the welding marks down there. Aluminium is really good from a price aspect. They're usually sort of the best bang for buck that you'll find when we're talking about a gravel bike. They're also quite strong. We could look at carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is amazing for, racing or adventure riding or going quite quickly. Sometimes it's a little bit more expensive. Actually, I don't say sometimes. Usually it's a little bit more expensive, but if you're chasing the sort of the performance of racing and that kind of thing, you might find carbon fiber useful. If you're looking to perhaps go for an overnight trek and just go missing for a few days, carry a tent strapped to the bike, you might even find that steel or chromoly will be the best thing for you. Steel and chromoly are gonna be the strongest you can get. You'd be pretty damn unlucky to damage this frame unless you were hit by a car. That's probably the only thing that's really gonna hurt that frame. Lewis from the future here. I said that there were 3 different options. I think I forgot to mention the 4th option of bike that we've got here. You can also get titanium ones. I would make the joke almost that titanium is for the people that money's not an issue. Titanium can be quite expensive because it's way more comfortable. It's a bit more light. Okay, it's not a bit more, it's a lot more lightweight. And they're just, I'm gonna use the word beautiful. I don't know, if you think that there's a better word that explains titanium, let us know in the comments below, but I'm gonna use the word beautiful. They're often handmade. This particular one here, the Curve Kevin, is actually made in Melbourne. So having a handmade bike, again, it ties back in with that word beautiful. So now that we're down at the back end of the bike, we can say that gravel bikes will often have a different group set than what you find on a road bike. Sometimes they'll have an identical group set to what you find on a mountain bike. However, they might often have a slightly larger chainring. That's because when you're riding a gravel bike, you're often going a little bit faster than you would be on your mountain bike. However, we've got the really large cassette here, so your hardest cog and your easiest cog are both really far away. So you can go up a really steep hill, you can also go really fast down a steep hill. It just means that every step between is perhaps a little bit more extreme than what you find on a racing road bike, for example. This particular example that we have here actually has the SRAM Axis group set on it. That's one of the high-end SRAM ones that's electronic, it's wireless, it's all this beautiful stuff. It might not necessarily always need to be this fancy, but I suppose this is kind of where gravel bikes are going. They're becoming quite fancy. To quickly even touch on seat posts while we're here, this particular gravel bike has the standard seat clamp, but it has a carbon fiber 2-piece seat post, so it's able to sort of flex and be a little bit more comfortable. Gravel bikes are often really based around the whole comfort side of things. Racing road bikes are a bit more performance. So you might even find some gravel bike riders might even put a dropper seat post on their bike. That means that the seat post can get all the way out of the way with just a small click of the button with your finger. When I started working in bike shops over a decade ago, we hardly ever saw gravel bikes. They were an incredibly niche market. If somebody walked in with a gravel bike, oh, you've got a gravel bike? Why don't you just have a road bike or a mountain bike? Nobody knew anything about gravel bikes yet. Nowadays, gravel bikes have become such an incredibly popular bike. Chances are, if you were to ask your bike riding friends, hey, do you have a gravel bike? It'd be pretty common that they might say yes. I'm also seeing that a lot of road bike manufacturers have sort of almost reached their peak of how good they can make a road bike. Whereas when we're talking about gravel bikes, all the research and development that they're putting in, it seems like it's never ending. There's always a way that they can make a gravel bike even better. Because of all of these things, I'm seeing gravel bikes slowly begin to disrupt the whole industry. I think one of the biggest selling points with these gravel bikes is their versatility as a whole. They tend to be more comfortable than road bikes, but faster than mountain bikes. So if you wanted to get a mountain bike, but you want to go a bit faster than what that mountain bike allows you to, perfect. If you wanted a road bike, but you just find it incredibly uncomfortable and jarring on your back and all this sort of stuff, then a gravel bike might be perfect. A couple of reasons for this: it feels like you're riding on a road bike because you've got the racing handlebars, but having these bigger tires will make it so that you've got a little bit more friction. Friction is good in the way that it's traction, but it's bad in the way that it's friction. It's going to slow you down a little bit as you're pedaling along. With that being said though, if you were to buy some high-end fancy gravel bike and put your fancy carbon bits and that kind of thing on it, you could probably make it just as fast as a road bike. But as a bit of a rule of thumb, it tends to be a little bit slower. A few things to make it more comfortable as well are, again, having the bigger tires rather than your skinny little rubber tires on your racing road bike. It could even be things like the suspension in the handlebar that we were talking about. It could be the slightly more upright seating position. You're not sort of hunched over for a long time as well. There's sort of a bunch of different things that can make the bike a little bit more comfortable than a typical racing road bike. This particular example here also has lots of different mounts for lots of different accessories. Perhaps you needed to carry more water bottles because you're going for a really long bike ride. Perhaps you needed to carry a tent. Perhaps you needed to carry the kitchen sink. Whatever it is that you need to carry, you should be able to fit almost everything on there. Looking across at these standard sort of gravel bikes here, the more common ones that you see, they still have room for lots of different mounts. We've got some on the top, down the bottom. You might even be able to try and fit a rack on the back, but I would argue that probably not the same amount of versatility as you would find on a bike packing bike. I would call this one more of an adventure bike. But compared to a road bike or a mountain bike, way more versatile. Even if you wanted to try and use this bike as a commuter bike, that would be perfect. Having the bigger, wider tires and the stronger frame, you could jump up to the curb or jump back off of it, cut the corner straight across the footy oval, whatever it is you need to do, you might be able to do a little bit more with perhaps a gravel bike. One of the reasons that I love my gravel bike is I can ride it on the bitumen road all the way to the mountain bike track, ride around at the mountain bike track, and then ride it back home. That means that, first of all, I didn't have to turn my car on and drive my car all the way there. It meant that I was able to enjoy the commute on the way there and back. That also means that I'm getting type 1 fun while I'm riding around there and type 2 fun on the way back home. I remember when I was out riding my gravel bike, the first time that I got it, I did a 100-kilometer bike ride just to show off that I had bought a new bike so that everybody saw it on Strava. But I made sure that my bike ride came back through. There's a mountain bike track here called Eagle Mountain Bike Park. And as I was coming through there, I hit the same jumps that I hit on my mountain bike. If that doesn't show you how versatile this bike is, man, I rode down a double black diamond on this bike. They can handle everything that you give it to them. If we're being honest, back when you were a kid and you were riding your bike, you would ride it everywhere. There weren't really mountain bikes and road bikes, there were just bikes. I think that's honestly where gravel bikes are coming in. They're just the most purest form of bicycle. They can do all the mountain bike tracks, but they can also ride on the road to go to your friend's house. They're just the perfect blend of all different types of bicycle. That's why I think they're slowly taking over the market, because they honestly are that good. I think gravel bikes will eventually take over the market, but I don't say that as a negative. I say that as an absolute positive. Gravel bikes are just so versatile. If you're perhaps someone that's sitting at home and you're thinking, should I go this bike? Should I go that bike? You're the exact person that a gravel bike is designed for. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've learned something about different types of gravel bikes. Do you agree with me? Do you think the gravel bikes are going to take over the bike market in the future? Let us know in the comments below. Even if you disagree, tell me. I think the gravel bikes are absolutely going to take over the future. But again, I don't say that as a negative. It's absolutely a positive. Otherwise, I'm going to say thanks for watching and we'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.